Hello and welcome, Bloodlines and Betrayals, our venture into true crime. And today, we have a very controversial topic to discuss. A crime, a mistake, an accident? We'll never know. And with me, as always, the coach himself, Coach Schumann.
FBI, here we come.
I can't say the name of the thing, what it's actually called.
Chappaquiddick. So it's
Chappaquiddick. Okay. So we are discussing the Chappaquiddick incident with former Senator Ted Kennedy.
Yep.
Ted Kennedy from the revered Kennedy family, and also tragic Kennedy family that has been through so much over the years. And this incident was polarizing, and it was before I was even born. But doing my research, it's just amazing to see how it played out, what exactly happened, and if it had happened today, how different things would have been, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it really is. I think things would have been so different. But the Kennedys at this time were coming off two awful losses of, off of John and Bobby. And Ted was the youngest, I believe. He was like the future.
He was the future. Right.
37 years old, the prime of his life. And, plans were
projected. Some projected that he would be
president. Yeah.
President at that time.
He was scheduled to run in 1972 and pulled out because of this. And then he pulled out again in 76. So, the background on this is interesting. They, as you like to say, interesting. He and his cousin, Joseph Gargan, planned to race the Kennedy sailboat, Victoria, or Victoria, and in the 1969 Edgartown Yacht Club Regatta on Friday and Saturday, July 18th and 19th in 1969. They didn't go the previous year because of the assassination of Bobby in June. So Gargan rented a secluded Lawrence cottage for the weekend on Chappaquiddick Island in Massachusetts. It's a tiny island accessible only by ferry from Edgartown, which is Martha's Vineyard. Kennedy and Gargan hosted a cookout party at the cottage at 8:30 for a reunion for these, quote, boiler room girls who had served on Bobby's 1968 presidential campaign. 6 attended the party. Mary Jo, I don't know how to say her last name. Say it again?
Yeah, that's how you say it. Kapachny, yeah.
Kapachny.
Okay. Kapachny,
yeah. She came, and some other girls. All were in their 20s. All were single. Now, Bobby was married at the time. His wife had already had several miscarriages. She did not come on this trip because she was afraid of traveling and, putting stress on the pregnancy. So the men at the party, they had a bunch of guys, school friends. There were everyone was an attorney, which was amazing. Everyone there was an attorney or a longtime political associate of the Kennedy family. One was a chauffeur for the weekend. There were just who's who of attendees, all involved in politics, all involved in the law, all super wealthy. So the sequence of events is what's really kind of troubling,
Right.
because it was out of character for Ted. Mary Jo asked him to give her a ride back to her hotel. Kennedy asked for the keys to his car, and he didn't drive. He rarely ever drove. His chauffeur always drove him. The chauffeur gave him the keys of the car, and allegedly it was around 11:15. Kennedy wasn't wearing a watch. There's some debate on what time they actually left. Returning to Edgartown, Katama required making the last ferry, which left the island at midnight, or else calling to arrange a later ferry. Mary Jo told no one else she was leaving for the night with Kennedy, and she in fact left her purse and hotel key at the party. So that right there tells me maybe something nefarious was going on.
Well, I would say at most, from a nefarious standpoint, it was an affair.
Well,
Right.
if you're leaving your purse and a hotel key and you just ask for a ride home, something a little hanky panky maybe going on. Because I mean, she was in her 20s. He's 37 with a pregnant wife.
Right.
I mean, one thing can lead to another, as you know.
Right.
Relations can happen at any time.
And the Kennedys were good at that.
Yeah, and the Kennedys, Marilyn Monroe. I mean, who beats that? So you can't beat Marilyn Monroe.
No, that's pretty good.
That's my go-to. That's my go-to.
And in retrospect, there's a lot swirling around even that death as well.
Yes.
Marilyn Monroe, which maybe that should be on our list, by the way, as another case.
That I've read about her case, the alleged suicide, but people obviously thought she knew too much and could have buried Kennedy and she had a lot of psychological issues. She was institutionalized. And, absolutely, they could have worried that she could have started spilling some secrets and ruined his political career. So we can talk about that another time. So, I was just going to say the exact time of the crash is unknown because there's so much conflict between the testimony. Kennedy actually drove by a deputy sheriff as he was driving Mary Jo.
Which leads me to believe he was intoxicated.
Well, of course he was.
Even though there was never a sobriety test ever performed.
Nope, and not at all. And there was never an autopsy on Mary Jo, which I thought was key. So Kennedy runs into the deputy sheriff, and he said that he saw him. And he drove to the ferry landing. He made a wrong turn onto the unpaved Dyke Road instead of bearing left to stay on the paved Chappaquiddick Road for another 2.5 miles. And there was also an intersection. The deputy sheriff left work by 12:30 a.m. on Saturday. He was in uniform. He was at a regatta dance, and he returned to Chappaquiddick Island for the yacht club's private boat and drove east and south on Chappaquiddick Road toward his home. Around 12:40, after he passed the intersection on Dyke Road, he saw the dark four-door sedan driven by a man with a woman in the front seat, approaching and passing slowly in front of him. The car drove off the pavement onto Cemetery Road and stopped. Thinking the occupants must have been lost, the deputy sheriff stopped and walked towards the vehicle. When he was about 25 feet away, the car reversed and started backing up towards him. And he called out to offer help. The car just kept moving forward, veered, and went onto Dyke Road and sped away and left him in a cloud of dust. And the deputy sheriff, Locke, he recalled that the license plate began with an L and contained 2 sevens, consistent with Kennedy's license plate, L78207, an Oldsmobile Delmont 88. I have no idea what that is, but it sounds good.
That's it right there.
Oh, okay. So
that's the actual car after being pulled out.
It is.
Yes, this is the car when they first got it out.
See, that's what's so crazy.
This is it submerged as it's just starting to bring it up. And then this is the Dyke Road that you were talking about. The one.
Now it didn't have guardrails at this time when it happened. They put guardrails on after it happened.
That's a good point.
Yep. That was interesting as well. It didn't, but that's why there's controversy, because the deputy sheriff, if his version is true, leaves over an hour of Kennedy's time with Mary Jo unaccounted before the crash. So about a minute later, Locke, the deputy sheriff, saw Kennedy's party guests, Nancy and Mary Ellen Lyons, dancing in a conga line down the middle of Chappaquiddick Road, a short distance south of the Dyke, the bridge.
Right.
He stopped to ask if they needed a ride. They declined, and they corroborated his testimony about meeting him in the road, having the verbal exchange, and declining the ride, but they were unsure of the time. They also were unsure that they saw a vehicle driving north on Chappaquiddick Road, which they could not describe in any detail. So, the Dyke Road leads to 0.7 of a mile to the bridge. It was a wooden structure angled obliquely to the road, crossing the channel connecting Cape Pog Pond to the north and Poocha Pond to the south. And there were, like I said, the bridge was not fitted with guardrails. A fraction of a second before Kennedy reached the bridge, he applied his brakes, lost control, and the car was launched over the southern edge of the bridge, plunged nose first into the channel, and flipped over. Now, this is what gets me. It says that it was only 6 to 8 feet of water.
And I'm sure he was an avid swimmer. All the Kennedys were.
Yeah. And, I can stand in 6 feet of water. So
right.
Kennedy swam free. Mary Jo did not. Kennedy claimed he called her name several times from shore, tried to swim down and reach her 7 or 8 times. How hard can it be to swim down? I know it's dark, it's night, whatever.
The only thing is that it's dark.
It's 6 feet. It's 6 feet. 6 to 8 feet.
If you feel the car, once you swim down, you feel the car, right?
So that would guide you.
Once you feel the car, you probably have a feel for where everything is on the car. And then can you get in to get her out?
Yeah. Well, if he got himself out.
Right. Maybe he could not get her out. I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that he dove down 7 or 8 times.
It's not like it was 20 feet of water. It's 6 feet.
It's 6 feet.
I mean, we're standing in that. Like you could, I could stand in 6 feet of water, open a car door or a window or whatever.
Right.
Or use something to break it, whatever.
And it probably was partially submerged. It probably wasn't completely submerged at all.
It wasn't.
Right?
It wasn't. It tipped over. It went in head first and then tipped over. But yeah, it wasn't completely submerged. So this is where it gets kind of
that leads me to believe, reading between the lines on this, he they said she could have survived for a period of time trapped in the car, especially if the
yes.
And they probably weren't wearing seatbelts back then, right?
Nope.
This is 1969. They might have had seatbelts, but they weren't often used. Okay, so it strikes me as a situation where it wasn't like that you had an impeding seatbelt. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
Impeding her, so like very hard to get off, or she couldn't get out. So
I don't know how hard he really tried.
Definitely negligence here. There's definitely negligence at the least amount. More likely, 2 people are drunk, about to have an affair, or fool around,
or they did have an affair because there's
or having it while he was driving, as we all know can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
He was enjoying himself, and oh shit, and
100%. 100%.
100%. And then now they're in a situation. Now it's going through his head. How am I going to explain this to everybody? That's what's going through his head. Of course, if he had thought clearly, that explanation would have been.
Everyone had. All of us have had affairs.
He still would have had. He still would have been.
It wouldn't have killed his career.
It wouldn't have killed. Well, it didn't kill his career because he still was the senator for many years, and he was.
I'm saying if he had, if it came out that he had an affair,
the right thing saved her. Okay, simply doing the right thing, saving her.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like a cop might have not been too far away either. Might have been able to run and get her.
Yeah,
it's
was
not
right
like
there.
Maryland, right? Like, what are you going to run a half mile? So what does that take? 3 minutes? So 4 minutes. Well, for him, maybe slow. 4 minutes. So that part of it is very puzzling to me. I have my theories. Obviously, nothing's been proved in court, but my theory on it is that was all going on, and maybe he hoped she would get out and scrub his hands from this, which he may.
That's what he said. He did say that, like, in his statement to the police in the morning, he said that. Like, I just held out hope that she escaped and was fine. But what's puzzling is he does the rescue attempts. Nothing comes of it. So this motherfucker goes back to the cottage where the party's still in progress. But rather than
happen.
Yeah. But rather than alerting to the guests of the crash, he quietly summoned Gargan and Markham. Gargan was his cousin. Markham was the confidant on the Bobby Kennedy campaign. And he collapsed in the back seat of a rented Plymouth Valiant parked in the driveway. Gargan drove to the site of the crash, and they tried to rescue Mary Jo from the car. Gargan and Markham jumped into the pond and tried repeatedly to rescue her, but were not able to. due to a strong tidal current. Again, it's 6 fucking feet of water. Really?
Yeah,
After they were
now there's 2 people there, so one person couldn't hold on to the other person while he went inside.
You got 3 people. Kennedy's there too.
Right. 2, one. Yeah, like you hold him, I hold you. Go in.
Absolutely. And the other thing, when Kennedy walked back to the
They didn't
party,
want to draw police attention. That's why.
no, I know that.
That's what it is to me.
When Kennedy walked back to the party, there were 4 houses on the way. He could have stopped at any one of those houses and called for help. And he never did.
And back then, that's what you would have. There was no cell phones. You would have gone to if something happened back then, because I grew up during that time period of the 70s. I grew up in the 70s. You would have gone to a neighbor. You would have said, "Hey, call the police." Right? This happened. Blah blah blah. And they would have called the police because people weren't as suspicious of neighbors as they are now.
Right.
Especially out there. It's all probably very wealthy people.
It's all wealthy people.
And it's secluded. You know, they would make a phone call. Police would be there because there's probably one policeman in that island. He's probably doing nothing.
Yeah, very, very small. Yes.
Right. He's probably doing nothing. He probably has nothing to do. So,
but he never stopped. He walks by 4 houses, doesn't stop and call for help, goes back to the party, gets his buddies. They go and try to save her. They can't do it. So then the 3 were all lawyers. So they decide to have a meeting, a convention. They're next to a public phone booth while doing this. And Gargan and Markham insisted multiple times that the crash had to be reported. That was their legal advice. Like, this has to be told
right away. Kennedy, so after they couldn't get
it, they wanted him to report it now.
Yes.
But so this is what happened, and this is even crazier. Kennedy dove into the water,
again,
swam 500 feet across the channel to Edgartown because, the ferry, he couldn't take the ferry. He then walked to his hotel room, removed his clothes, and collapsed in his bed. So the 5 rescue attempts, he's still able to swim 500 feet across the channel.
That's what he could have rescued her. This guy can swim.
Yes.
Swimmers. The Kennedys are great. I mean, JFK was a hero in World War II for the PT when they got bombed, and he saved all those soldiers. That's what launched him into presidency.
Exactly.
Was when he saved all those people. He saved the people that they had been bombed, and he saved all those people. He swam. Kennedy swam. So it tells me that obviously, swimming was a big part of their, they're very wealthy, their upbringing, right?
Of course. They're white collar. Yeah.
So JFK swam and saved all those people. I think he swam miles with by one person, saving him, holding him in his mouth, I think, or something.
And this guy, 500 feet, he swims across the channel.
Right.
And then he doesn't tell anyone in the hotel, and he goes to bed.
JFK, not to get too far off topic, but JFK towed a wounded man, Patrick McMahon, by holding his life jacket strap in his teeth 3.5 miles. Then over the next few days, okay, this is how good is this just kind of gives you. This is why it's hard for me to believe, because I know the Kennedys, this was a big part of their growing up. And obviously it happened to be a situation where he was in the Navy. That's why he chose the Navy, JFK.
Yes.
Because obviously they learned to swim. And over the next few days, he made at least 2 other major swims, including a 2-mile swim for food.
Jesus. Wow.
Okay? And then back to the wreckage looking for supplies. In total distance, JFK swam 7 miles in multiple trips in open ocean, no
In the
swim,
ocean. Yeah.
open ocean, no swim gear, while exhausted and injured.
Now that is a hero.
That's a hero. It's sad some of the things that happen. I mean, their family's like blessed and cursed at the same time. But
This guy is swimming 500 feet, and he can't swim down.
He probably did it with ease.
And he can't swim down 8 feet, 6 feet of water to get this girl.
Come on.
So he goes home, passes out, and Gargan and Markham went back to the cottage. They got back around 2 a.m., but they told no one what happened. When questioned by the guests, they said that, Kennedy swam back. He swam back to Edgartown, and Mary Jo was probably at her hotel. So they lied. They told everyone to get some sleep. By 7:30 in the morning, Kennedy was casually talking to the winner of the previous day's sailing race and gave no indication that anything was amiss. At 8 a.m., Gargan and Markham went back to Edgartown on the ferry and met Kennedy. And, they were furious that he did not report it. So a short time after 8 a.m., a kid and his dad were fishing, saw the car submerged, and notified the residents at the cottage, as you would. They called the authorities at 8:20. The Edgartown police chief, Dominic James Arena, arrived at the scene 15 minutes later. He attempted to examine the interior, and he got a the scuba diver, with cable equipment and towing equipment to pull the vehicle out of the water. John Farrar, captain of the Edgartown Fire and Rescue Unit, arrived at 8:45. He had the scuba gear. He discovered Mary Jo's body in the back seat. He extricated it within 10 minutes. 10 minutes! Police checked the car and saw that the license plate was registered to Kennedy's. And one of the guests, Rosemary, her purse was found in the front passenger compartment of the car, causing they misidentified Mary Jo as Rosemary because it was her purse. So Kennedy meets with his crew, Gargan and Markham, on Chappaquiddick Island on the ferry. Kennedy made a series of telephone calls from a payphone near the ferry crossing, the same phone that the guy stood by for 6 hours earlier discussing Kennedy's options. He called friends, he called lawyers for advice, and he never notified the authorities that he was the operator of the vehicle, which was still upside down in the pond. He called his brother-in-law, Stephen Edward Smith, Congressman John V. Tunney, and others that morning, but he still failed to report the accident. He was at the payphone when he found out that Mary Jo's body had been discovered. He then goes to the police station, and he at 9:50 he asked to make some calls, and then he told the police chief, Arena, that he knew about the accident and the identity of the victim and admitted he was the driver. Arena was completely stunned. He led Kennedy into another empty office where he could provide a dictated statement to Markham, his buddy, who wrote it out in longhand, and Arena typed out the statement. So the statement: I was driving my car on Main Street to get back to the ferry of Edgartown. I was unfamiliar with the road and turned right into Dyke Road, that dirt road, instead of bearing left on the main street. After proceeding for approximately 1/2 mile on Dyke Road, I descended on a hill, came upon a narrow bridge, The car went off the side of the bridge. There was one passenger with me, Mary Jo, a former secretary of my brother Robert Kennedy. The car turned over, sank in the water, landed with the roof resting on the bottom. I attempted to open the door and window, but I have no recollection of how I got out of the car. So now he has no memory. I came to the surface and repeatedly drove down, trying to see if the passenger was still in the car. He was unsuccessful. I was exhausted, in a state of shock. I walked back to where my friends were eating. There was a car parked in front of the cottage. I climbed in the back seat and I asked someone to bring me back to Edgartown. And I remember walking around for a period just in my hotel room. When I fully realized what happened, I immediately contacted the police. That is his statement, which is complete bullshit. And he did not sign the statement, which is even more incredible. So now the medical examiner, the normal medical examiner had a day off. The associate medical examiner was called to the crash site to examine her body. He was satisfied the cause of death was accidental drowning and asked the DA's office for direction on whether an autopsy was necessary, and told no, don't need to do an autopsy. There was no foul play. And the medical examiner was satisfied it was a drowning, and he signed her death certificate to that effect, released the body for embalming, and directed that a blood sample be collected for, they test their alcohol content. The result was 0.09, which was very, very high. Basically, it's up to 5 drinks. It was high because she was very small. So she was really intoxicated. The body was released to the family. The funeral was held. That was it. The actual medical examiner, Robert Nevin, he was pissed that the associate medical examiner disagreed to do the autopsy, believing that ruling out foul play would work to Kennedy's advantage by laying a public speculation to rest. So this turned into a complete nightmare. After Nixon found out of the incident, he dispatched basically an investigator named Anthony, I can't pronounce his last name, to disguise as a news reporter and collect information like an undercover agent. And because he thought Kennedy was be his rival in the 72 election. The guy didn't find anything out that wasn't already known. So this is what, again, there's controversy. Farrar was the firefighter who pulled her out with the scuba gear. He recovered the body. He said she died from suffocation rather from drowning. Basically, the posture that the body was found in, there was an air pocket that formed. So she was breathing, and based on rigor mortis, her hands were clasping the back seat and her face was turned upward, basically gasping for air. So It wasn't necessarily she didn't drown. She was stuck and she had air to breathe. And
see, it sounds like someone came up behind her, choked her out.
No, I don't think that. I don't think he got in the car and choked her out.
So what's the suffocation?
Because the air pocket, you'd eventually run out of oxygen.
Oh, you would see the oxygen. Okay,
yeah, you'll use up all the oxygen. There's not enough to last.
I see what you're saying.
That's why they estimated she probably lived for several hours down there.
Wow.
So the firefighter, Farrar, was pissed because he's like, if they just called, I probably could have saved her life. I would have had her out of there in 10 minutes. But they never
That's
called.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's political.
100%. 100%. Farrar publicly asserted that Mary Jo likely would have survived if a more timely rescue attempt had been conducted. So basically, if you're with someone you care about, you love, that happens, you're screaming and running to one of those cottages, banging, pounding on the door, calling for the police, trying to get help, and they could have come and they probably would have saved her. But because Kennedy was, like you said, as we had our discussion about reflection, he was reflecting on his options, on what would happen based on, regardless of the different scenarios that played out. So,
well, the fact that no autopsy was conducted is
what happened was the Kennedys paid Mary Jo's family like $90,000, and the Mary Jo's family apparently must have been saints, because they said that they never sued or pushed for him to be arrested, because they didn't want it to seem like they were out for blood money. That's what they said. So the defense, the Kennedy met with a variety of people.
She died in vain. Horrendous.
Like the dream team that OJ had.
Right.
There's a list of like 10 people that came to advise him. And they decided that the political damage was catastrophic, and he could not see. Nobody cares about Mary Jo's life.
No.
They're talking about his political strategy and future. So they said that he couldn't run for president in 1972, and now they wanted to protect him from a charge of possible manslaughter. So this is where it gets even worse and makes me sick. The court hearing was held before Massachusetts District Court Judge James Brohl 7 days after the incident. Kennedy pleaded guilty to a charge of leaving the scene of an accident, causing bodily injury, and his attorney argued any jail sentence should be suspended. And the prosecutors agreed, citing, well, he's 37 years old. He's got impeccable character and an incredible reputation, considering the unblemished record of the defendant and the insofar as the Commonwealth represents, this is not a case where he was really trying to conceal his identity. They sentenced him to 2 months in prison, suspended sentence.
Here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting. So I love it when they say he's flawed. It wasn't flawed. So when Ted Kennedy went to Harvard in 1951 as an undergraduate at Harvard, he was caught cheating when he had another student take a Spanish exam for him. He was suspended from Harvard for 2 years. He spent part of time serving in the U.S. Army. He was then readmitted to Harvard and graduated. Not that people can't.
But they said that he was unblemished. That was not true.
That's not true.
When he was in college, he got in trouble for reckless driving or something.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Like he had a poor driving record. Let's put it that way.
And he was academically dishonest, right?
Yep.
So, not those alone are not reason, but like, yes, it's amazing. The arguments. So it's funny because I read the arguments. I put it in the chat GPT just to get a curiosity what the legal arguments on both sides were. And then, by the way, it's amazing what you can get from chat GPT, dude. It's amazing.
What is that? What is that?
That's the AI. You should start using it.
Oh, okay.
Because I typed in what are the arguments for and against Ted Kennedy? So just so I could see it for myself.
Well, the judge and the prosecutor were both like, yeah, no problem. 2 months suspended sentence.
He pleaded guilty. Leaving the scene, a misdemeanor typically involves negligence.
Yes.
There was speculation about his relationship with her. With questioning, family denied that it was romantic.
Yep. And he was cited. Yeah, and he was also in college. He was cited for reckless driving and driving without a license. And how about this? In 1958, Kennedy ran a red light. Then he cut his taillights and raced to avoid a highway patroller. When Kennedy was caught, he was cited for reckless driving and racing to avoid pursuit and then driving without a license. That's the character of this. You're going to say the character of this motherfucker. He cut his lights.
He was not a JFK or RFK.
No.
They were much more. Listen, I'm not saying they didn't fool around women. Obviously, that seems to be a thing.
They weren't as dumb as.
But they weren't as dumb, and they were not as morally bankrupt as Ted seems to be.
100%,
or seemed to be. And I'm not saying it in retrospect because obviously he's no longer alive. But I felt this way when he was alive. So
he let a person die.
He literally
because he was worried about his political career.
Yeah, you know what? And you know what? When you see, like, did you watch? It was a great show on Netflix. With Kevin Spacey.
House of Cards.
House of Cards. You watch House of Cards?
Yeah, I watch House of Cards.
Listen, do I believe that these things go on in politics?
Absolutely, it does.
I believe it 100% that it goes on. And listen, obviously, I'm conservative, but politically, but do I believe it happens to both sides? Absolutely.
But the key that Kennedy had working in his favor, all this happened in Massachusetts.
Right. Correct.
Where they were gods. They were gods.
The cases against, the cases for Kennedy, the defense, this is what was listed. No evidence of foul play. So no evidence that he intentionally harmed.
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose.
Or tried to harm her. He claimed he made multiple attempts to save her, which obviously there's no way they can prove that or disprove it. Panic and trauma, meaning he suffered concussion or shock.
He did say that, yes. He did say he suffered a concussion.
Possibly, but which is believable to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Delay in reporting could have been due to panic, fear, or disorientation rather than malicious intent.
Yeah.
Possibly believable. The thing that bothers me
I don't believe any of it.
He was aware enough to go to his friends. This is why I don't buy it.
And drive back.
To go to his friends, to bring them back to the area where it happened.
Exactly. And try to save her.
To save her. They couldn't figure it out for whatever reason. Then swam
500 feet.
500 feet. I don't think there's that many people who, in a concussion, could swim 500 feet.
And drunk could do that. Yeah.
And drunk, right.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Pleaded guilty 2 months. We already legal consequences did occur, right? Because they gave
Washington went after him. Right. They were the ones who did. Nobody in Massachusetts did.
By getting him to plead to a misdemeanor, it was basically they struck a deal.
Yeah, and they paid off the family, and they got a suspended sentence for nothing. And someone died.
Right, someone died, and basically they struck a political deal that said he'll plead to a misdemeanor. All this goes away. We don't do an autopsy that would prove him.
Here's 90 grand.
Without an autopsy, they could not speculate whether she could have been saved or not for sure.
Yep, they couldn't. Yep.
So any argument about survivability is conjecture. And then obviously it ended his presidential ambitions. And he did, well, this has nothing to do with the case, but later on he said he accepts moral responsibility, calling his actions indefensible. It'd been nice if he did that. But they didn't go after manslaughter or felony.
How do you go back to the party and not say anything? That's what I like. He just shows back up at the party, says nothing.
And here's the great state of Massachusetts. After he gave a nationally televised speech.
Oh, the speech is great.
If he should remain in office, he was reelected multiple times.
Yep.
And I think it was when people thought his presidential aspirations was, I think he gave the speech for RFK's nomination, if I'm not mistaken. And that's when he was going. They really thought that he was going to be
the guy,
because he obviously, I mean, he was a great speaker. But let me see. I mean, and we showed the pictures of
the car.
I mean, Chappaquiddick. That's the bridge. I mean, that's the water. That's the beach.
It just doesn't look that deep. I don't
like. I feel
and many people
have to be a hero to be. You don't even have to be that much of a hero to go in and like that. No, seems a little more.
Well, Troy could have swam down and got her.
He could have found her. I don't know if he could have pulled her.
I mean, Jesus. She at least could have opened the door.
And the island is so small.
Yeah, it's a very exclusive, very small island.
Yeah, I'm trying to get I thought I had a good picture of the island. Hold on, let's see if I do.
And
aerial drone of there it is. That's the island, dude. That's the ferry they take, right? That's the ferry. They would go to the end of the island.
Yep.
For the ferry.
Yep. And he swam across.
And then I don't know where the little waterway is, but it must be over here. Must be to the left. So it must be like a half mile from here to here. You know, looks like it's like that. Like that's like a mile or so, probably.
Yeah.
And this is probably a newer picture, so this is probably more built up than it was back then. There might have been not as been as many people living there back then. Like I wonder if I can get a picture.
No, there probably wasn't. But you're right. They paid money to have him give a speech to the people of Massachusetts to decide whether he should resign. And his approval rating went down, but he never was voted out. And his speech was concluded with a passage from his brother John's book. And he said, "A man does what he must in spite of personal consequences." So that right there just tells me, he says, I did what I had to do despite personal consequences. I did what I had to do. I did what was best for me, my family, and my career in spite of the personal consequences. Yes.
Look, this is what it looked like in 1969. See, no guardrails. Remember we talked about no guardrails?
There were no guardrails.
I mean, this does not look overly dangerous, the area. This is not like driving over an ocean.
That's why I don't understand like how he drove off in the first place. I don't think anyone's ever drove off since.
He's got a Humdinger, maybe.
I do think one of the theories was that
he was drunk. I mean, obviously he was drunk.
Well, yeah, but people also think that he didn't want her to survive because he had an affair with her.
Yeah, of course. There's no doubt. There's zero doubt in my mind that he was having an affair with her. I know the parents have said differently. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, what world are we in? Like, he's alone with a woman and
he took the car, which he never did.
As a person once told me, nothing good happens after midnight. So after midnight, all that can happen is dangerous. Might feel good, but it's dangerous.
So, I mean, they did a grand jury investigation, and the family opposed it. Everyone opposed it. They still did. And they wanted to exhume the body to test it. And it was denied. The judge had a hearing and denied it. The request was opposed by Mary Jo's parents and forensic pathologist. I love this guy, Werner Spitz. He's testified at so many major trials. He testified on behalf of the parents that the autopsy was unnecessary and that any available evidence was sufficient to conclude that she died from drowning. And the judge ruled against the exhumation, saying there was no evidence that anything other than drowning caused the death. So Kennedy had to give testimony in front of, I don't know if it was front of Congress or the investigators. He testified. He testified and kind of changed his story. He claimed after turning on the dirt road, he was driving and he realized that he wasn't heading towards the ferry. He was heading east, and he said his speed was 20 miles an hour. And he testified that he had full intention of reporting it. And he mentioned to Gargan and Markham something like, "You take care of the other girls, I'll take care of the accident." That's what he said, and he dove into the water. Kennedy had told Gargan and Markham not to tell the other woman because they didn't want to worry them, because he strongly felt that if the girls were notified, that they would go and try to save her, and one of them would drown. That's what he testified.
It's like the old joke. I was once in what's the place? Florida Keys, the farthest point, Key West. I was in Key West, and I went what do you call it? Jet skiing with dolphins and stuff. And we pulled to this one area. It's this big, vast water area. And the guy's like, "We can all get out here." I'm like, "We're able to get out here?" He's like, "Just get out and stand." And I get out, I stand, and obviously I could stand. The water, it was a vast part of water, like near the ocean, but it was an embankment where it was kind of standable, So I was like, wow, because I'd never seen that over where I live. Like, it was this huge land as a part of water, a part of the ocean, but it's way out, but you actually could stand. It was near an island or something. And, that's the case in a lot of these kind of little lake areas near, or little like swampy areas around the ocean area where you have little pockets of water that aren't that high. And it's crazy. I mean, this is a great view, by the way. This is a modern view, but
yeah, it's beautiful.
That area.
No, I know. I've been to Mars. I mean, it's beautiful.
But look at, that's a small bridge, and
that's still why I don't get it. That's still why it doesn't add up to me, because it wasn't that deep. And during the inquest, Gargan and Markham testified, And they both said that, first of all, they were pissed because they told Kennedy that they didn't want to be involved. Like,
Right.
don't use our names. We were never here. We're doing this because we love you. We're your friends, but don't mention that we were part of this.
Right.
And they had the conversation, and it got heated, and both were insisting that he report the accident. Said it had to be reported. And they both left and went back to the girls. And Kennedy told them, he said, okay, I've got the point. I got the point. Basically, that he was going to call for help. And then as soon as they left, he dove in the water and swam away. And then the fireman.
This was not a great person, Ted Kennedy.
Yeah, the fireman Farrar testified again that it looked as if she was holding herself up to get the last breath of air. It was a consciously assumed position. She did not drown. She died of suffocation in her own air void. It took at least 3 to 4 hours for her to die. I could have had her out of that car in 25 minutes after I got the call, but nobody ever called me. He said this in the inquest, and he said this in the papers. He testified the body was pressed up in the car in the spot where the air bubble would have formed. He interpreted that she survived in the air bubble.
Right. Her leg was trapped, or something was trapped, obviously.
After the car was submerged. She couldn't get out. She couldn't get out. And again, he just was furious that they let this girl stay down there for 3 to 4 hours. And nothing, no help, nothing came. The findings from the judge: death probably occurred between 11:30 and 1 a.m., which doesn't make sense according to the timeline. Kennedy and Mary Jo did not intend to return to Edgartown at the time. Kennedy did not intend to drive to the ferry slip and turn into Dyke Road. It had been intentional. A speed of 20 miles per hour would at least be negligent or possibly reckless on that bridge, because if he knew of the hazard, the operation of the vehicle was criminal. And he believes it's probable that Kennedy knew of the hazard that lay ahead of him on Dyke Road, but that for some reason, not apparent from his testimony, he failed to exercise due care as he approached the bridge. There's probable cause to believe Kennedy operated the motor vehicle negligently and that he contributed to the death. Having found probable cause of a crime, they could have issued a search warrant for Kennedy's arrest, or a warrant for Kennedy's arrest, but did not do so. Despite the findings, the prosecutor declined to go for manslaughter. And the Mary Jo's family did not bring any legal action against the Kennedys because they were paid $90K and $50,000 from his insurance. And they said taking legal action, they didn't want people to think there was blood money. They were going for blood money. But this was just a complete mess, because Massachusetts went out of their way to protect him. Washington wanted investigations. They wanted to exhume the body. And he got away with it. He freaking got away with it. And they found
drunk. He would call him a coward. But I would say I would say this is something that he could have saved her. So I wouldn't even go so far as to say I would say it's not cowardly. It was intentional. Okay, because
I think so too, and based on the quote he said too.
Yes, intentional, and that's the thing that like people get caught and say, "Oh, he's a coward. He didn't want try to save her." No, he intentionally didn't try to save her because he swam himself 500 meters to save to across a channel. I mean, for God's sakes, that would have that takes more courage than saving someone who's 5 feet down that you could go grab. So
Yeah,
he intended for her to die. He intended for her to die because once maybe you could argue that he hoped somehow she would get out on her own, but he basically left her there to die because he didn't want to face the consequences, which he of cheating,
of his political career, because he knew that. Well, he believed that had she survived, his political career would have been ruined. You know, he wouldn't be the senator. He wouldn't be able to run for president. All that would be taken away. And I don't see that to be true. I think it would have shown courage and humility. I made a mistake, but I'm, regardless of my career, I'm not going to let someone die.
Right.
I'm going to save a life. And it blows my mind that they found probable cause to prosecute him for manslaughter, and the DA declined to do it. All because it's in Massachusetts.
Oh, there's no doubt the case. It's very sad. It's a very sad case. A sad case. It's sad.
We mentioned the OJ case, and Ron Goldman's father was on OJ like flies on shit. Everywhere, everything he did, every dollar he made, he went and got it. He never let him forget it or live it down. I wish Mary Jo's parents were a little more aggressive with that. I mean, okay, is your daughter worth $140,000? Do you put a price tag on it and just say, we want to move on?
You know what I do love about the Ron Goldman thing? Ron Goldman has outlived OJ. Ron Goldman's father. I'm sorry.
Of course he did.
He's 84. He's still alive.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Yes. That case is. We'll definitely got to do that one, and then we definitely have to do Marilyn Monroe. But I think we're on the same theory on this one. Definitely that.
I think that
negligent and manslaughter and
very selfish. He was only thinking of his political career. Was not thinking of her. He summoned. He had the wherewithal to summon his friends, bring them back. They tried to save her. They told him to
let her die.
That's what people say. And what ended up happening, his wife ended up having a miscarriage.
Oh, that's right.
And she blamed it on this incident because it put so much stress and strain on her.
Bad karma.
Yeah. And, for all the amazing things that Ted Kennedy did, I think this was largely forgotten about. Like 10 years later, I never heard of it. I never heard of it until like 5 years ago.
Oh, you never heard about the case, you mean?
Yeah, I never I think that people forgot about it. People put it behind them, and it was business as usual. Now, it ended any advancement in his political career because there was no way he could run because that was going to come up. and his testimony was inconsistent. They could obviously show that they had probable cause to indict him for manslaughter. Do I know if he would have been a good president? None of the Kennedys were presidents, so who knows? I think JFK, obviously was the best. I think Bobby would have been phenomenal. I don't know about Ted.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't deserve to be president,
So the guy who Trump brought in, Robert Kennedy, who's that?
That's RFK Jr.
Okay. Who, RFK, like Bobby's son?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Bobby's
okay. Well, but aren't the Kennedys Democrats?
So, well, he was a Democrat.
Oh.
He flipped. He left the Democrat because they've gone after him because he was anti-vaccination and all this stuff.
With vaccination crap.
Yeah, so he flipped, and he's into health, helping people be healthy, and he's
How old is he?
He believes that all the murders of his dad and his uncle were conspiracies. Like, he really, most of the Kennedys have kind of like pushed away from him because
he's a conspiracy theorist.
He believes that a lot of this stuff was government based, taking them out, and I don't think he's too far off. I mean, I think Robert Kennedy Jr. He has some things that are a little out there, but for the most part, I think he's in the right place, and I think he's very smart. Like, he had like like, you ever heard him speak? How his speech is?
No.
So he like he can barely speak because his voice has like, I don't know if he had a disease or
his vocal cords were damaged or whatever.
Yeah, so he let me see here. What was it? His yeah, I'm trying to think of what happened. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. is interesting. He's got an interesting background. After his father's death, Kennedy struggled with drug abuse.
Well, a lot of them did, yeah.
Struggled with arrest. He was a ringleader of a pack of spoiled rich kids who called themselves the Hyannisport Terrors, engaging in vandalism, theft, and drug use. They blamed Kennedy, RFK, for leading other members of the family down the path of drug addiction, calling him a predator.
Well, it wasn't
at Harvard, Kennedy continued to experiment with heroin and cocaine. Often did it his brother David, earning 82.
God, how many brothers are there? Who is Patrick Kennedy?
He did get arrested for heroin at one time.
That's nothing. Everyone gets arrested for heroin. The Patrick Kennedy was bad.
Who was?
Was there a Patrick Kennedy?
It's amazing because he really turned his life around, RFK Jr. But if you think about, like, people, like people want to blame, like, think about what he was been through. His father was killed. His uncle was killed. Like,
that's trauma, of course.
He probably was fucked up for a while. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
By the way, he's independent, so he's not.
Well, it's good to have that voice on the panel. With Trump.
His education's amazing. He got a Harvard degree. He also has a degree from the London School of Economics. He has a JD from University of Virginia, and he's got an LLM, which I don't even know what that is, from Pace. Oh, Master of Laws. He must be a smart guy.
Yeah, sounds like he's a smart guy. Sounds like he's a smart guy.
Yeah, he does. I was curious to see where the thing with his voice, where that is. Like, how did he lose that voice? He was very big against with the COVID-19 back stuff. Trying to see how he had heart problem. Oh, okay, he developed adductor spasmodic dysphonia, an organic voice disorder that causes his voice to quiver and makes speech difficult. It is involuntary movement of the larynx related to dystonia. Yeah,
Right.
the procedure. The procedure of the Brit. So I guess he had something to give him the ability to speak a little bit. But he's very interesting. That's RFK Jr. I'm gonna listen to the Kennedys stretch
Who
so wide and far politically.
what are you thinking about for next week?
I'd like to do Marilyn Monroe.
We can do Marilyn Monroe.
Or would you rather do OJ? Want to do OJ?
No, OJ will be long. Marilyn Monroe, I love talking about. I like the old school. OJ, I know inside and out. Marilyn Monroe,
You gotta do
I
some
know.
research. Yeah, I got.
I've done research. I know her story. I know how she changed her name. She didn't have a great relationship with her mom. I think she was adopted.
She's from a
She,
farm.
she colored her hair.
She originally from Texas, I think.
She was institutionalized many times. Her
Sad.
doctor prescribed her way too many drugs. She took barbiturates and downers. I mean, her autopsy report, what was in her system, would have killed a horse. I mean, she was married to DiMaggio.
Yep. Yep.
She was sometimes good, sometimes not. I mean, she was difficult on set. That was tricky. And then she was one of the first women to. I think she started her own production company. And then I think she also signed a multi-film deal with a company as well. She was one of the first to do that. She signed like a 6-film deal with a company, and she also signed. She had her own production company that made movies.
Very interesting.
So she was a trailblazer.
Yeah, we could go there. Do that.
I'm a big Marilyn Monroe fan. I mean, I would love to.
Yeah,
I would
let's
love
do
to.
it.
We can do Marilyn Monroe. And I can't believe the Husky hardball keeps going up.
Is it?
Yeah, it's around 600. I posted it in some of the Facebook chats, the Facebook groups for baseball.
Any of them?
and,
What do they
and
say
for
about it?
UConn. It's gotten great reviews. It's gotten very good comments and reviews. Yes. We, just try to be a little more in depth, but otherwise it's good.
That is good.
So I have 2 more shows. I have one with Maria, and then I have one I'm doing with the animal shelter. And then I'll text you. I'm going to try to call you with Julius if you're around.
Okay, yeah, I'll be around. Just call me.
Yeah, we'll do that. So, just for the record, this is Bloodlines and Betrayal. best true crime podcast out there. We can do it all. Ted Kennedy. Did he mistakenly drive off the road? Did he leave Mary Jo to die? Was he only concerned about his political career? Did he cost himself a chance at being president? We'll never know. For Coach Schumann, I'm Steve Cully, the best podcast host in the universe. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and don't drive off the Dyke Bridge.